Dear brothers and sisters, as we gather here on this Sunday afternoon, we all are here together because we want to grow spiritually. The spiritual path is a path of love. Spirituality deals with our own existence. And as we try to grow on the spiritual path, there are many aspects of the path that unfold in our lives. Through the writings of the great saints and mystics, we get an inkling as to how our life should be. Where do we get happiness and joy, which is everlasting? And how should one lead their lives so that the purpose for which we are all here is fulfilled? All traditions are telling us that we're all children of God. That is very, very common in each and every tradition. And all traditions, the tenets or the commandments of the traditions are very, very similar. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Be helpful, be caring, do not kill. These kind of tenets in each tradition are very, very similar. And then we find that as we lead our lives, even though all the traditions are the same, one starts to feel as if their tradition is better than someone else's tradition. And so instead of getting to the depths of what our faiths are telling us, that we are all members of the same family, we need to love each other, we need to take care of each other, we get jealous of each other. We want to grab things from others that might not be our own. We look down upon others because they look different to us, or we feel their beliefs are different. And so even though all the treasures for us to gain from are there in our lives, we are unable to get them because we live in a different world. We live in a world in which we feel we are separated from everyone else. We live in a world in which we feel, I need to do this for myself because it'll be good for me. And instead of caring for others, instead of being like supporting the big family of God that we all are part of, we start to feel that we need to take care of ourselves and not worry about anyone else. And so that tendency of trying to gain for ourselves is what makes life very, very difficult. Because we can't live in a cocoon, we can't live by ourselves, we need to live with others. Whether it's work, and when you go to work, you have to work with others also. You might have a business, you need to have customers, you need to work with other people. So you can't live in a cocoon by yourself. So as life goes by, even though all that we truly need to lead our lives is embedded in each and every one of our faiths, we don't partake of it. So there's a very interesting example about a person. This person used to work very, very hard, but earned very little money. And so he would have a tough time, saving money. He was just making ends meet. And then as time went by, some of his friends who were doing better than him, when they met, they started talking about, we went on vacation here, we went on vacation here. And he would think, oh, can I go on a vacation sometime? And then he tried to save money. And as he's saving money, he could save very little money. And he didn't have enough to go. And then came the cruise lines. So his friends started saying, oh, I went on this cruise. I went on a 5-day cruise. I went on a 7-day cruise. And boy, it was so good. I went and I saw this place and I saw that place and this and this and this and this. So the person thought, oh, maybe I should go on a cruise. So he saves and he saves and he saves. He gets enough money to get a ticket. So he buys a ticket on a cruise. It takes a 7-day cruise. Now when he bought a ticket, he realized all his money went into buying the ticket. So thinks to himself, when I go there, I'm going to have a place to stay, but what am I going to eat? So he says, oh, let me take a few sandwiches. So he makes a few sandwiches and he's making some because he says, the 7th day I have to eat breakfast, I have to eat lunch, I have to eat dinner. He's not an Indian guy, otherwise he wants a tea break too. It's from the West. So at least 3 meals. So he's making sandwiches and he takes them with him to the cruise. So he goes on the cruise, he's very happy. He goes on the cruise, he's enjoying the swimming pools and he's having a good time. Then gets hungry. So he goes in one of the places, sits by himself, takes out the sandwich and eats them. He's happy. So he has his breakfast, he has his lunch, he has his dinner. And a couple of days go by and he's enjoying, all the amenities that are on the ship. And on the 3rd day, he sees some people take some food in a plate and walk around. And the place looked really good. I mean, they got all kinds of, pastas and pizzas and all kinds of other goodies out there. So he thinks to himself, boy, these guys must be rich. They must have so much money, they can buy all the good food here. And he's thinking to himself, oh, I wish I had more money, I could enjoy the food also. And he goes back to rooms, he eats his sandwiches. And a couple more days go by, and then one day he's seeing an older gentleman carrying a plate which to him looked like all kinds of cakes and pastries and all kinds of desserts on it. So he couldn't hold himself back because he'd been eating sandwiches for 5 days already. So he asked him, how much did you spend to get these desserts? Because he's thinking maybe I can have a couple of them, but they're not very expensive. And the gentleman says, what do you mean spend? This is all for free. He said, this food is all for free? He said, when you buy a ticket, the food is included in the price of the ticket. It is then that he realized that all of that could be given him. We're in the same boat too. The treasures of knowing God are all within ourselves. Whatever faith we belong to, all of them tell us we're children of God. So as we're children of God, then we're connected with God, right? We feel very connected to our parents in the physical world. So all of our faiths are telling us we're children of God, so we are connected to God. But what do? The treasures of knowing God are with each and every one of us, but we don't partake of them. Instead, we focus our attention on the world outside, and God is within. And this is why all the saints and mystics tell us that we need to invert. We need to go within. We need to experience ourselves as we truly are. We need to experience the treasures of divinity which are within each and every one of us. We are the ones who can partake of those divine treasures, but unfortunately, we don't even think they exist because we only are focused on what we experience through our physical senses. Saints and mystics, whenever they come into this world, have always exhorted us to know ourselves as we truly are. Many years ago when I went to Greece for the first time, they took me to a place called the Delphic Oracle, which was a place where in the old times the great thinkers would come and they would speak there, and people would learn about new philosophies and new thoughts and new um, horizons that maybe were not open to them before. And right at the gate of the Delphic Oracle, other verses says, "Know thyself." So knowing ourselves truly has been at the heart of each of the teachings of the great saints and mystics. We need to know who we are. Let's not live on the periphery, which most of us do. Many of us think of ourselves as just being the human body. So we decorate the body, we feel the pains of the body, we want to do those things which we think are good for the body, and so all of our attention goes to the physical body. The saints and mystics tell us we're not the body, we're not our mind, we're not our intellect. In reality, we are soul. And that soul is a part of God. That soul is full of the love and light of God. And that soul can be experienced by us just like we experience the physical body. It's a question of focusing our attention in the right arena. It's a question of where are we going to look? What are we seeking? Everyone wants to be happy. There's no doubt about that. No one wants to be in misery. No one wants to be in pain. And so we seek our happiness in all kinds of directions. Some people go to movie theaters, some go to plays, some go to sports games. Some, might find happiness in the games that they play in their own home through all these electronic devices. Each one feels happiness doing something that they feel very comfortable with. But does this happiness last a long time? And so, is there some happiness that we can achieve which is permanent? Because most of our attention goes into the world outside. And so, saints and mystics have been always exhorting us that we need to find a mechanism by which we would be permanently happy. And that mechanism can be found. Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj, who wrote much about the spiritual path, and he wrote many ghazals, which are poems, and each verse in a poem is very, very important because it could take a different thought in the same poem. And when we read his verses, there's clarity in many different arenas of the spiritual way. How do we find a state of being eternally happy? It is there with each and every one of us, but how do we get there? Who tells us about the spiritual path? Who gives in a contact with our soul? Who can help us experience our soul as we truly are? And so Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj, through one of his verses, is trying to tell us that when we go to an arena which is spiritually charged, then we can be guided towards our true goal, toward knowing ourselves and knowing God, to find the merger of our true self, our soul, in God. So in this verse, and this verse is in Urdu, it was one of the languages which was very popular at that time. And Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj says, "Tamam zindagi ye आरज़ू का हासिल थी, तमाम जिंदगी ये आरज़ू का हासिल थी, वो एक शब्द जो तेरी बज़्म में गुजारा है." So if we were to translate this into English, it would be that one night spent in your assembly has been the fulfillment of a lifetime of longing. So Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj here is bringing many concepts out. He's saying that one night spent in your assembly. So he's talking about his spiritual master. And he's saying that your assembly, what is the assembly of the spiritual master? It's a gathering of like-minded persons who are searching for the truth of this existence and are searching for God. So he says there's this assembly of all these people who are searching for God, and the guidance is coming from the spiritual master. And so he's saying that whether it's one night spent or one day spent, or when we go to that spiritual assembly, he says this has been the fulfillment of a lifetime of longing. So, what is a lifetime of longing? Our soul, which is the real self, it transmigrates. It goes from one existence to another. Every time we have a human birth, we have thoughts, we have words, and we have deeds. And so karma is created, and based on the karma is what our next existence is. And so we could be in any one of the 8.4 million of species. And then God graciously gives us another human birth, gives us an opportunity to know God, because the human body has been called the roof and crown of all creation, because it has all the faculties which are required by us to know ourselves and to know God. And so when we have this opportunity, where all the treasures are with us, then the longing in the soul to be with God is what needs to be fulfilled. When we are in all these other existences which are not the human frame, then there is no mechanism for us to know God. So the soul has this longing to know God because it's a part of God. It's been separated from God. It wants to be one with God. And so the soul, as it finds its existence in the human body, is very, very happy. Because the soul then realizes that it has an opportunity to know God, that its longing to be with God can be fulfilled. But the mind is also there in the human body, and unfortunately, through our physical senses, the mind drags our attention out in the world outside. And our attention is the outer expression of our soul. So instead of our soul getting closer and closer to God, our soul now is going into the world. Because as a child is born, so what do the parents say? Let us teach the child languages. So we teach them either English or Hindi or German or French or Punjabi or whatever the language we speak ourselves. Why? Because we want to communicate with them. We want them to be able to communicate with others who are going to take their time. They're not going to help them reach God. But we live in this world, so we say, hey, we have to live in this world. We need to know the languages. We don't teach them the language of love. If we would teach all our children the language of love, the language of peace, the language of harmony, then this world would be a heaven. But we don't do that. We just teach them this is the name of this food because we feel you need food for the physical body to survive. So we teach them, oh, this is milk and this is granola, that this is chocolate, and this is whatever else is there. We teach them based on whatever we think is good for them. And then we feel that their body needs to be strong. No one thinks about the child's soul. Soul needs to be strong too. Because if we weaken the soul, we don't nourish the soul, it's not going to be able to gain that it can. And the child goes to school and we teach them, and the teachers teach them things about this physical world. Now we have to live in the world. There's nothing wrong in learning about the world. But if it's only lopsided with no attention given to the growth of the soul, then we become lopsided human beings who are quote unquote very intelligent. Our IQ could be very high because we're very knowledgeable about the physical world and its activities. We could be people who know how to speak properly, how to do our jobs properly, how to excel in whatever professions we have. But if we have not had our soul being nourished, then this life becomes a waste. So the longing in the soul to know God never gets fulfilled. The longing has been there ever since we've separated from God. And it's only in the human existence that we can find our connection. And so when we are brought up in this world, if we only focus in the world outside, if we only get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to work, come back, feel very tired, have some entertainment, watch some TV or whatever, entertaining things are for us, and we sleep, and we do that every day, every day, every day, and have no nourishment for our soul, then the lifetime that we've been given would all go in being focused in this world, and we create more karma, whether good or bad. Whether it's good karma or bad karma, we have to deal with it. So when Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj is saying that one night spent in your assembly has been the fulfillment of a lifetime of longing, what is he trying to tell us? He's telling us that the soul has this longing to be with God. Our attention is in the world, and then we get an opportunity to be in the assembly of the spiritual master, in which there are other like-minded people who are also trying to find the purpose of life. And when we go there, what happens? The talk or the attention in the assembly is always on the soul. It's not on the physical fitness, it's not on the body, it's not on the other thing, it's always on the soul. Why? Because the spiritual master realizes that we're all here to have our meeting with God. That's the whole purpose of the life, to meet God. Nothing else matters. If we can meet God, then we're done. And so that realization is there. So everything in that assembly is geared so that we will be able to meet God. And so our attention then is focused on fulfilling that longing which has been there for eons and eons and eons. Because it's when we are in that spiritual radiation, when Sant Rajinder Singh Ji Maharaj talks about Shab or one night or one day, what he's trying to tell us is that assembly is available to us and we can come back there day after day after day. But when we come there, then attention is focused on what the purpose of this existence is. And once we understand what our true purpose of life is, then our life will go in the right direction. See, if we have a clear understanding of what we should be doing, then we'll do it. The trouble is we don't have a clear understanding. We still are thinking, oh, maybe I can do this and I can do that and I can do that. But when we go to the spiritual assembly, time and time again, we recognize the fact that this existence is given only for the purpose of our soul meeting God. And when that happens, then we will definitely take steps towards that goal. And this is why Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj is saying that one night spent in assembly has been the fulfillment of a lifetime of longing. The longing is to meet God, the longing is to be with God, the longing is to remove the separation, the longing is to experience ourselves as we truly are so that the merger in God can happen. Because when we are in the assembly, what do we gain? We learn the techniques of being able to rise above physical body consciousness. Right now, we're all focused through our five senses. We don't even realize there's anything more than that. But then, we are told about the single or the third eye, which is between and behind the two eyebrows. And we are taught how to focus our attention there. And with help and guidance of the spiritual master, we can be uplifted into the regions beyond. Just like we need guides and we need teachers to learn anything in the world outside, we need guidance on the inner spiritual way also. So the spiritual master helps us so that we could be guided towards our goal. And then as we start to practice on a regular basis, we find that our journeys beyond the physical start to come into play. We start to recognize that there's something beyond what we experience through our senses. And it's then that reality starts to set in. Because it's only when one experiences something that the realization can happen. If you only hear about it, if you only read about it, we're never sure. But if we close our eyes and we experience the divine light or we hear the divine sound, then we know it's there. No one's taking a torch or doing something so we can see it. And this is where Simran comes into play, that we use this mechanism as a testing device of whatever we experience, so that we are experiencing the realities of our existence. And as that comes into play, the unfoldment of these spiritual treasures is what gives us joy, because that's the nourishment to the soul. The connection with the divine current of light and sound of God is what uplifts us, and that is what makes us happy. And that happiness lasts. It's not there for a short time because we experience it ourselves. It's coming from within. Every time we go and focus our attention within, we can partake of that state of joy and happiness. And as this happens in our life, we find that we're getting closer and closer to our goals. So through each one of the verses of Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj, we get clarity on a different aspects of spirituality. The path of spirituality, as has been taught by Sant Kripal Singh Ji Maharaj and Sant Darshan Singh Ji Maharaj, is not a path of negating life. They taught that we have to survive in this world. So we have to live in this world. So we're not negating this world, and we're not going to the top of a mountain or leaving our families and try to find our God. That while living in the world, we can know God by giving it attention. If we give it zero attention, we can't know God. So they say if we give 10% of our daily time towards our spiritual practices, we'll reach our goals. And so that part is very, very important. We have the 90% of the time for other activities to survive, to have the body rest and do whatever else is needed. But at least 10% of our time should be devoted to our spiritual practices. So that while living in the world, living in whatever cultures we are, living in whatever societies we are, and doing whatever work we do, the soul is nourished. The soul gets its food. The soul blossoms, and the soul is getting closer and closer to God. If that happens in our life, then the purpose for which this human body has been given is fulfilled. And so the key to be able to go within is what is called meditation. Meditation, nothing else than taking our attention from the world outside and focusing it within ourselves, nothing else. If our attention is on the world outside, that's all we'll gain. But we want to gain from the treasures inside. When we were given this ticket for this human journey, everything was given to us. Now, how much of it we take is on our own, but God has provided us with everything that is needed for us to fulfill the very purpose for which we are here, to fulfill our longing, to make sure that we can merge with God. It is for us to make use of what God has given us. And so it is very important, whatever stage of our life that we are at, that we do recognize the importance of meditation in our life. Many times, even after getting initiated, we still get involved in many other activities. We forget the importance because we feel, oh, I got initiated by the master, me and 7 generations of men up and down gonna get help. I'm done. No? We can help ourselves by not having to come back so many times more. We can help ourselves by going back to God, by fulfilling that longing in this very lifetime, by putting in our share of this journey. And our share, our role, is to find the time to sit to meditate. The rest is all God's. Whatever journey God wants us to take will happen. We have to get over the wiles of the mind to be able to sit, to meditate. Our mind is going to pull us in all kinds of directions and say, oh, this is very important, and this is very important, that is very important, we need to do this. Otherwise, this will happen, or that will happen, that will happen. And so we all get caught up in that, and we neglect our meditations. So the key is to be focused on giving enough time to our meditations on a daily basis. Everything else will fall into place. And those who do meditate regularly find that happens in their life. The key is to be able to go within. The key is to partake from the divine treasure. The key is to be able to nourish our soul. The key is to be uplift our soul. The key is to be going on this spiritual journey, a journey of light, a journey of love. And that will culminate in the merger of a soul and God. That will culminate in fulfilling the purpose for which we all are given this human existence. So let us just meditate for a few minutes. Please sit as comfortably as you can. Close your eyes very gently, just like you close them when you go to sleep. Your eyeball should be straight, focused 8 or 10 inches in front of you. And as you close your eyes, those of you who've been initiated in the mysteries of the beyond, please do your Simran. And those of you who are new here, please repeat any name of God that you feel comfortable with. This repetition of God's name should be done mentally and not out loud. I pray to God Almighty to help each and every one of us here connect with the divine power within and to experience the divine light of God within ourselves. So we'll be sitting for a few minutes. I'll be getting you out of this meditative state at that time. And my best wishes are with each and every one of you. Please sleep off.